gently down.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're at week 24 of the series that will cover days 154 to 160. Or if you have the edition of the Road Rising that follows the calendar, then you'd be looking at June 3rd to June 9th. With his rescue mission behind him, Friend says goodbye to Ralph and continues his journey up the trail. It takes several days of changing topography, but he finally reaches an ocean. Not the shallow salt lake where he was set adrift, but a real ocean with a sandy beach and a trail marked by wooden signposts every few hundred meters. Friend is delighted with the change of pace and spends several days marveling as he walks, contemplating the huge waves and the seemingly endless beach. One day he spots a whale offshore, running parallel to his own course, apparently feeding on whatever it is that whales eat. At night he could hear the beast splashing around just a few hundred meters from where he sat, and the pilgrim was reminded of something. Let me read his journal entry from June 9th, day 160. I camped on the beach last night, and in the quiet of the evening I could hear the whale offshore swimming back and forth, breaching and slapping the water. Was he alone? I wondered. Where was he going? I had heard that single males did sometimes cover huge territories in search of food before rejoining their pod. But if this were the case, I thought that he would have moved on rather than stay in the vicinity. I suppose the fishing must be good in the area, and he's in no hurry. Still, there was a whisper in the back of my mind that he somehow knew of my presence and was choosing to stay nearby. I quickly shook that off, however, because it made no sense whatsoever. I had nothing he wanted and had no intention of going out to meet him for closer communion. I know that some people have a special affinity for the animals of the sea, as if they were some kind of prehistoric ancestor. But to me, they were something to be admired, or feared, or eaten. That big fellow fit the first category. I plan to just keep it that way. The next morning I didn't see him at first and was surprised to feel a little lonely. Before noon, however, I heard a familiar slap of water and turned to see him as he dove again. He was a little closer to the shore, I suppose following a school of fish. The barnacles on his side stood out like scales on a dragon, and the sound of his breathing was thrilling and disconcerting at the same time. Isn't that the way it is? We love to see the awesome and the powerful, but from a safe distance. King Kong is fine on the big screen, but keep him out of the theater. Maybe that's why so many people prefer to think of God as a distant amusement, an interesting topic of conversation, but keep him out of my heart. Come to think of it, if I didn't know him the way I've come to on this journey, I'd probably feel the same way. It's like the Narnian described Aslan in the classic C.S. Lewis series. Safe? Of course he's not safe. He's a lion. But he's king. And so I shudder to think of being any closer to the whale offshore, while a part of me wishes I could touch him. I wonder if it would be safe. It's not much of a stretch, I think, to imagine God in this scenario. He's big. He's bad. And he's something off in the distance. So it comes as no surprise when people take a less than reverent attitude about God. They speak of him as the big guy upstairs or the old man. Hollywood often portrays God as a kindly, perhaps confused gentleman who has seen better days. I remember a popular song back in 1998 by Alanis Morissette. What if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Just a stranger on the bus, trying to make his way home. And that's the kind of God we can identify with. We join with those early Greeks and their pantheons of God, big and loaded with all kinds of superpowers, but at the end of the day, not so different from the rest of us humans, complete with emotional baggage. The problem is, that's not the God of the Bible. In his love and mercy, we're not drawn into an up-close and personal encounter. Not yet. But there will come a time, as the Apostle Paul reminds us in Philippians chapter 2, verse 10, when every knee will bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And the tragedy of this, if I'm reading it correctly, is that this confession that every one of us is destined to make is not a confession that leads to salvation, but simply a confession of recognition. All the more reason, while God is still at a distance, at least in our perception of Him, to see what a mighty God He is. He's loving, He's merciful, but He's not some old man who deserves our sympathy. This too is part of the gospel story, and one that needs to be told wherever there's an ear to listen. See you next time. Y'all come back now, here? My heart ached to hear of her distress. More than anything, I longed for her and my daughter to see things the way I saw them, and to understand that this decision was something I could not and would not ignore, even if it meant losing everything that I had ever held dear in this life.